I would like to share with you a brief snapshot of what Italy has been doing in the last few years on religious engagement and, let's say, on secular religious cooperation with a view to development and the SDGs in particular. I can say that the interaction with religious actors has now become a structural component of our foreign policy, which is something not to be taken for granted. It has not always been like that, and this is not only for Italy. So this is the structural component of our foreign policy, both at the headquarters and at Italian embassies overseas. Religious engagement, which is the interaction between secular and religious actors on issues of common interest and of global significance, is increasingly seen as a pattern that can be applied to many areas that are relevant to foreign policy. And as this initiative shows, environment protection is no exception to this. It's a kind of universal pattern that I think works in different cases, in many circumstances, and on many topics. The rationale behind this approach is straightforward. If religious actors are on board with respect to a certain initiative, this initiative is simply more likely to succeed. The ground behind it will be broader and support will be stronger. We also try to look at violations of religious freedom as a development issue, so through the lenses of development. In other words, when discrimination or marginalization on religious grounds happen, stability, cohesion, and growth are under threat. So this is a development problem. And the relation runs in both directions, from a positive point of view and from a negative point of view. And there is a mutually reinforcing relation between stability, growth on the one side, and the protection of religious freedom on the other side. And to play a meaningful role in the advancement of the SDGs, religious or belief actors and communities need to be granted the right to organizational autonomy and to be able to operate without undue restrictions. This is a point that shouldn't be overlooked. At the same time, people need to be protected from any discrimination on grounds of religion or belief if they are to be both enablers and beneficiaries of sustainable development. They need to be able to fully play their role in society without any limitation on restriction based on their religious affiliation. And religious freedom itself is key to environment protection. We could mention different examples, and one of them is that we have sisters actively engaging in this domain. One example, think of indigenous people in many local contexts who play a key role in safeguarding the environment and in raising collective awareness on environmental issues. Restricting their fundamental rights, including their religious rights, would ultimately have a negative impact on the environment itself. We would lose that important contribution. Another example, religious or belief actors can mobilize energy and resources to engage people on climate action. To do so, again, leaders and community members need to be able to fully play their role in society. And it is important to focus on both levels, leaderships and the grassroots, and as was said earlier. Going to and mentioning some specific initiatives that we are working on, since 2018 we have been financing development projects run by Italian NGOs in partnership with local counterparts that seek to address social and economic discrimination affecting Christian communities in crisis area with a global scope. So we have projects in the Middle East, in Africa, in the Balkans. This is a concrete example of how we can empower religious minorities through development cooperation and in particular through the advancement of the SDGs. Then we finance projects that are run by faith-based, faith-inspired organizations across the globe, in the Balkans, in Sub-Saharan Africa, in the Middle East, in Latin America, with a focus on environmental issues, biodiversity, sustainability. So we also feel this is an area where secular religious cooperation can bring so many positive results. With regard to the environment, again, we have, I think, a success story to share. Ahead of COP26 in 2021, Italy, in partnership with the UK and the Holy See, gathered a number of religious representatives and scientists, so two apparently different and far from one another categories, who sat together and drafted an appeal on the duty to protect the environment that was later handed over to political leaders meeting in Glasgow. We realized when we conceived that initiative that presenting the duty to protect the environment as both a secular and a religious one would amplify the underlying and the overall message and ensure it has a better acceptance across populations and across generations. So to conclude, I believe we should all strive to overcome all remaining cultural and ideological barriers on both sides that still hamper closer cooperation between secular and religious actors. It is a common interest that goes beyond political, cultural, or historical differences, and I think a vital issue to deal with to make sure we have a greater impact on our common objectives. And again, many thanks for giving me this opportunity.